巨人たちを呼ぶ。
Essentially, you're like the key to a lock, which means you need the founder to be held by someone you trust, someone who can understand our optimization plan. I know you'll find that someone, and I promise I'll always watch over you, Zeke.
When we first meet Zeke in Attack on Titan, he's shown as this typical villainous, mysterious, and kind of this mastermind of the Eldians residing in Marley. But as the show progresses, we start to peel back the layers of this character to reveal the real man that Zeke truly is, and whose philosophy is both really disturbing and deeply tragic. His views specifically on freedom, the nature of suffering, and the role of history are all rooted in a warped understanding of his tragic past. Zeke is not just an antagonist in the traditional sense, but he's more of this philosophical figure, one who seeks to challenge the very idea of human existence in this world doomed by violence and blood. In this video, we'll delve into Zeke's twisted philosophy and examine how it informs his actions and decisions throughout the series, from his early childhood to the first time we meet him in the show and to his final moments. We will explore the core ideas that drive Zeke's mindset and ultimately his tragic yet heartwarming, in a sense, downfall. To understand Zeke's philosophy, we must start at the very beginning. Nope, not that beginning. Yep, that's more like it. I think one of, if not the main reason why Zeke's philosophy was formed in the first place was because of the two clashing ideas that were in his childhood. That of Zeke Jaeger's and his father figure, Keshavar's. Let's start off with Grisha's influence. Grisha's role in shaping Zeke's philosophy is pivotal. Grisha places this immense pressure on young Zeke, expecting him to continue his radical cause and become a revolutionary. Grisha does it in a way where he lets Zeke feel like he's just a pawn to Grisha's cause. This overwhelming burden forced Zeke to betray his own parents, with some bit of malice, but ultimately out of fear and survival for himself. Grisha's idealistic vision of a free Eldia clashed with the brutal reality Zeke faced under Marley's regime. That leads us to Keshavar and his influence, the former predecessor of the Beast Titan. Keshavar plays a critical role in shaping Zeke's philosophy, especially by offering him an alternative to his father's radicalism. As Zeke's mentor and predecessor, who simply starts out as someone who Zeke plays baseball with, Keshavar provides Zeke with a more pragmatic, albeit twisted, perspective on the world. Keshavar's approach was rooted in a deep cynicism about humanity's potential for change. He shared Zeke's belief that the Eldians were cursed, but rather than seeking freedom through revolution, Keshavar emphasized survival at all costs. Keshavar's fatalistic view that the Eldians were trapped in an endless cycle of suffering and war influenced Zeke immensely. Under Keshavar's guidance, Zeke began to embrace the idea that the only way to break free from the cycle was through the extinction of his own people, his euthanization plan, which we'll go deeper to later. Keshavar's influence was crucial in solidifying Zeke's rejection of hope, pushing him towards this tragic and nihilistic solution.
Don't worry, I'll find them, Father.
Zeke's euthanization plan stands in a stark contrast to the philosophies of other key characters in Attack on Titan, particularly our main character, Eren's. Zeke's belief that the Eldian race is inherently cursed and doomed to a life of suffering, leads him to the tragic conclusion that the only way to end this cycle is by sterilizing all Indians, ensuring that no more are born to inherit the Titan's curse. In his eyes, this is an act of mercy, a way to free future generations from inevitable violence and oppression. However, this stands in direct opposition to Aaron's evolving view, where freedom is something worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Aaron rejects the Zeke's idea of mercy through extermination, opting instead to carry out the rumbling to secure freedom for Eldians, even at the expense of the rest of the world. This philosophical divide highlights the fundamental difference between Zeke's belief in peace through death and Aaron's belief in peace through sacrifice. Moreover, Zeke's nihilistic outlook is a foil to the ideals of hope and perseverance championed by characters in the Scout Regiment, specifically of Armin and Levi, who embody the hope that humanity can overcome its past and change its future, a belief grounded in the possibility of redemption and growth. They light for a future where humanity can break free from the cycle of violence, while Zeke, having seen only suffering and betrayal, deems such hope as a naive and ultimately futile cause. His plan to euthanize Eldians serves as a rejection of the Scouts' mission in a way, representing a complete loss of faith in the idea that humanity can evolve or find peace without resorting to destruction. These opposing philosophies not only drive the conflict between Zeke and Aaron, but also underscore the central theme of the series, whether hope and freedom are worth the cost of human lives, or whether humanity is doomed to repeat its tragic mistakes. Zeke's plan forces the characters and the audience to confront the moral complexities of these questions, making his philosophy a key element that propels the story towards its tragic and thought-provoking conclusion. I think that's also why Zeke and Levi's rivalry with one another is so compelling. Zeke and Levi's rivalry is compelling because it's not just a clash of physical power or brute strength, but this deep ideological and personal conflict with one another. Zeke, the quote-unquote monster who betrayed his own parents, chose to ally with Marley, represents everything that Levi despises. Levi, having lost his family and friends to violence and oppression, has built this life around protecting humanity from the horrors of the Titans. To him, Zeke is the embodiment of betrayal and cruelty. Zeke's cynical worldview, on the other hand, sees Levi as this stubborn warrior who clings to the ideals that only lead to more pain and death. The ideological clash is at the heart of their so iconic rivalry. Their rivalry is further intensified by their own personal histories. Zeke is acutely aware that Levi is a devil of humanity, someone who has killed countless Titans and will stop at nothing to defeat him. Levi views Zeke as the ultimate threat to his people, willing to go any lengths to stop him. Their battle becomes not just physical, but ideological, freedom versus destruction, hope versus resignation. Both characters are driven by personal vendettas and the trauma of their pasts, making every confrontation between them very emotionally charged and ultimately deeply consequential. This leads us to the main question to ask here, and that question is, was Zeke right? The answer is no. I mean, not in the traditional sense of no. I mean, nothing really in Attack on Titan is considered right morally in the conventional sense. But to be honest, I think Zeke's plan was the most right you could get in solving the main conflict between Eldians and the rest of the world. Zeke's plan, while harsh, promised to end the cycle of violence by sterilizing Eldians, preventing future generations from inheriting the Titan curse. In contrast, Eren's approach of destroying the rest of the world to secure paradise only aligns with more a brutal eye for an eye mentality, or the ends justify the means. His plan risks annihilating billions, including innocent civilians, all for the sake of Eldian's survival. Meanwhile, the Alliance, despite their well-intentioned desire to stop Eren, aims for a future that could still lead to the ultimate destruction of Paradise, which ultimately happens. Our journey as the audience from hating Zeke to understanding the stark, tragic consequences of the alternatives reflects the overall complexity of Attack on Titan's themes and is the main reason why I love Zeke's character so much. In the end, Zeke's plan may have been the only one that could have truly secured lasting peace, even if it seemed morally painful. The series forces us to confront these difficult choices, showing how none of the proposed solutions come without sacrifice. Ultimately, Zeke's philosophy reveals the tragic reality of the world. Peace often comes at the cost of something deeply painful, and sometimes the most humane option feels the most unthinkable. And that ultimately leads us to my favorite moment of Zeke's character in the entire show, and why he cemented himself as my fourth favorite character of the entire series, close behind Erwin, Reiner, and Eren.
俺たちの望みは叶わなかったよ。安楽死計画は間違ってなかったと。だから一応感謝しておくよ、父さん。みんな力を貸してくれ。思ってたらまあいっぱい殺しておいて無視が良すぎるよな。
Zeke's death is one of, if not the most perfect conclusion to any character arc that I've ever seen, not just in Attack on Titan. Highlighted by his final line, "I guess I should have realized that sooner." This line encapsulates the tragic irony of Zeke's journey throughout the whole show. Despite all his efforts to end the cycle of violence and secure peace for Eldians, Zeke's realization about him being a monster as well comes too late. Throughout the series, he believed that the euthanization or the sterilization of his people was the only way to break free from the curse of the Titans. But in the end, as he dies, Zeke finally acknowledges that his philosophy was flawed after all and futile, that no philosophy that he's ever come up with, or any philosophy of any character in the show, is perfect. It's a heartbreaking recognition that his attempts at salvation were ultimately a failure. In simpler terms, he finally realizes that he wasn't as perfect as he thought he was. His death in choosing to oppose Eren's catastrophic plan is the tragic culmination of his life's work, an attempt to prevent mass suffering that only resulted in further betrayal and death. Zeke's final words, in a way, reflect the core themes of Attack on Titan, emphasizing the futility of idealism in a world bound by violence and power struggles. The final line of Zeke marks a moment of clarity for Zeke, where he understands that his vision of peace was naive and that the very cycle of violence he sought to end was still inevitable no matter what you do. This sobering realization underscores the ultimate tragedy of his character, despite his intentions. Zeke never truly escaped the cycle of betrayal and destruction that defined his life. His death serves as a poignant reminder that no matter how hard one tries to break free from the past, the weight of history and human nature is often too great to overcome. Zeke is genuinely one of my favorite characters in not just Attack on Titan, but in all of fiction. Genuinely one of the best side characters that I've ever seen. And he's up there with characters like Erwin, Grimmer from Monster, Askeladd from Vinland Saga. He's got one of the most complex philosophies that I've ever seen. One that you have a lot of fun diving into. Oftentimes, when you get characters with philosophies as complex as these, they often lean to being more interesting to study rather than being the more relatable characters. But I think one of the other reasons why Zeke is one of my favorite characters is the fact that not only is he interesting to study, but also a character that you relate with and emphasize with. And aside from Erwin's, he's got the absolute best character conclusion in the entire series.